Okay, hopefully you're seeing just the opening page of our web page for Tayside contracts at the moment. So just a very brief word of introduction to the dashboard. This was something, there was a engagement session we had with joint committee members many months ago, and one of the things that the members were very keen on was establishing a dashboard of our performance information for Tayside contracts. The advantage being that you can view it any time. It's highly visual, very graphical, colour-coded, all of these sorts of things. You don't have to wait until you get an annual report or a 6-monthly report. You can view the performance data at any time, and also you can hold us up to challenge or scrutiny at any point, rather than within the sort of formal confines of a meeting or waiting for an actual joint committee report or something like that. So very much in favour of it. We've developed up the dashboard. I'd say it's still a work in progress, and welcome any feedback. We're taking a report, you've possibly already read it, or maybe that's your entertainment over the weekend, taking a report to the joint committee around really changing quite considerably the way we report performance to the joint committee. So this is all assuming that this is okay with the joint committee in terms of how we take this forward. So as a starting off point, the way that I would access the dashboard, and the way I would kind of commend yourselves to access the dashboard, but we will have different ways of accessing it, is to go into favourites, and I'll show you how to set up favourites. Into favourites here. I've got the joint committee dashboard on my favourites, so there it is, and that pulls up the information. Now, if you're not used to putting things into your favourites, it's so simple that even I can do it. Just click on the wee star with the equal sign there, and there's a wee add button there with the star. So add the page to your favourites, and that's it done. So you just click away from that, and that is on your favourites list. So you go back into that again, and it's on your favourites. We will be hosting the site of the dashboard on a SharePoint. What we say is this is some of the information, because it's financial, it's confidential and exempt, so it can't go public. At some point in time, we could share certain areas in the public domain, but we're not seeing that at the moment. So that's why it's got to go into a SharePoint site. Excuse me, sorry. And we will also send the links out to joint committee members. Now, I know, excuse me, there's been some challenges in terms of accessing the dashboard, and we're working through with these. I think there's technological issues between the Tayside contracts connection and the council connection. So this is basically the landing page, bit of introduction about the dashboard, and you can either access the dashboard itself by clicking on, excuse me, sorry, this line that says Power BI dashboard, or the other way is just to come down to the bottom, and the actual dashboard is here. So this is the start of the joint committee dashboard. There's a handy wee button at the very bottom right, which opens the item up in full screen. So that's it in full screen in all its glory. How we've developed this dashboard, there's been a working group, member officer working group. So Martin, you've been part of that, certainly, and Bill yourself, Dave Cuthbert and Sheila McCall from Perth and Canoss, and Lynn Short and Christina Roberts from Dundee City Council. And it's been really handy in terms of the guidance and direction from the joint committee members around that one. I think when we're reporting performance, we have to have that balance between the strategic and the operational, because you know, as managing director of Tayside contracts, you expect me to manage the organisation. There's no need for elected members to get involved in every single detail. So what we've done is crystallised the performance dashboard into those key areas of our performance that, as joint committee members, the member officer working group said they would be interested in. Let's hope the rest of the joint committee members are of a similar view. It is work in progress, and as I said, if there's any tweaks and changes we need to do, then more than happy to actually do that. One thing about today, and if you don't mind, because I lapse into this as well, today is more about looking at the joint committee dashboard, or the draft dashboard, the shape and feel of it, how it looks, rather than having a full analysis of the actual content and data, because looking at the performance of Tayside contracts, you'll get plenty of opportunities to do that. Hopefully, if the dashboard is accepted by the joint committee members. I'm conscious I don't want to take up too much of your time on a Friday afternoon. We've only got half an hour, so if we get into detail about performance issues, I think we could be here a lot longer. I'm more than happy to answer any questions on that, but I think for those that want to see the dashboard, if you don't mind, we'll confine it to the content of the dashboard. So I'll run through the pages relatively quickly and just show you what it's all about. So first page, and unfortunately, because you're seeing the little sharing screen here, I'll maybe take that away if I can. No, we can't. Okay. At the very top, you're maybe not seeing this fully, apologise, but this is saying when the frequency of the reporting is, when the next update's due, and when the information was last updated. The reason being that some of the information we produce is monthly, some of it is quarterly, some of it's 6 monthly, some of it's annually. So you will know when you're looking at that what the frequency is and when it was last updated. So this page is about our distributable surplus. At the top left, this is demonstrating the time period for which it's covering. We've pursued a kind of red, amber, green process. So green is looking good. So, for example, construction division actual is £801,000. Budget is less than £1,000. So that's a very positive green. Not as good as this time last year. So conversely, facilities less than budget. So that's a red, and the actual is better than it was last year. And then the overall figure on the left-hand side is what it is for the entirety of Tayside contracts. One little tweak which was suggested by the most recent member officer working group meeting, and I think this is a very positive one, is this gives our performance as up to the appointed time. So this is to 31st of December. But I think it was Councillor Cuthbert that said, and I agree, what would be good to see is what the year-end projections are. So we're going to be ditching these two graphs, which pretty much just tell you what's up above, and we'll be putting in the year-end projections as well. So that would be the 4 boxes you're seeing there effectively, but that would be replicated. So you'd see the up to the point in time in the top 4 boxes, and then imagine the bottom 4 boxes would be, that's what the future arrangement is. So that's the first one. I'm happy to take any questions as we go on. I'll just kind of keep my eye open for raised hands as we go. The second screen relates to debtors and cash flow. This is showing things like our forecast balance, so new cash flow in comparison to the previous year. It's also very helpful in terms of where our debtors are. Again, not wishing to kind of go into any performance information, but for example, there just seemed to be a little lag in terms of Angus Council in terms of payments, and we actually had a governance and strategy group meeting yesterday and kind of picked up on that. But that is really what the dashboard is all about, to have that clarity of information so we can pick up on that. So just some graphs around just the sort of progress of the debtors or positive balance situation, a little bit of narrative over time, and again a relatively latter suggestion from the member officer working group is that the map's a bit superfluous, and what it was suggested is we would do a graph of what the balance is this year and compare it to several prior years. We've got a little bit of prior year there, but the working group said let's do it for the prior year. So again, that's something we'll pick up on. And third screen just relates to the income generated from external sources. This is one which is updated 6 monthly, just to give you an example of the different frequencies that we have. So in terms of the income from sources, we've got the data year by year. We've also got the data broken down between construction and facilities with a bit more detailed percentages down below. So again, this is one that we just keep monitoring, and that would be available all the time for joint committee members to view. The next one relates to school meal uptake. One of the things I should have said at the start was some of these screens we are able to give that opportunity for joint committee members and others to drill down into some more information. So at the bottom line, obviously in terms of the numbers of meals, the percentage of uptake around the greater school population, free school meal uptake, average numbers, percentage school meals against budget, as it stands within each of the 3 councils, is all there. The flexibility allows, if somebody wanted to analyse by, say, a different time of the year, so that kind of takes that information back, so you can be really flexible in terms of time frame. you can be really flexible in terms of if obviously each of the elected members would probably be more interested about what's happening in their area. So if we take Angus and Martin and Bill, maybe be more interested in Angus, and you're saying, well, what's the uptake for primary schools in Angus? What's 95% of what the uptake is? What's the nursery level? It's 105.5%. So it gives that different levels of analysis, which again allows yourselves to go, well, what's happening in Angus that's maybe not so good, or what's happening in another area which is good that we can transpose, excuse me, into other areas. So again, I think this is quite a positive one because it's quite flexible and allows you to drill down into those areas, geographical areas for each of the three councils. Our next one, so the last screen really focused on facilities. This one was one which elected members were keen on in terms of remedial jobs carried out by ourselves. So this is where we need to go back and do extra work or additional work in terms of construction. Our target is 1%, and we're pretty low in terms of that, but obviously we'll work to make sure that we totally minimise the number of rework jobs. And again, we can kind of break it down by different periods, and we can also break it down by different council areas. So, for example, there's the Dundee breakdown as well. So again, it gives that ability to go down into the detail too. Next area is in relation to procurement spend. Sorry, one of the things I should have mentioned is where we have a KPI target, and we put that into the dashboard as well. So this one is about spend regionally, i.e. within Tayside versus other areas. There was a request from, I think it was Dave Cuthbert again at the last meeting, to try and have both that, but also a breakdown into particularly around catering and food. So we're working through that with our procurement manager to pull that information out. But again, it's an area of interest to the local authorities. Next one relates to complaints and compliments that we've received. Again, broken down in terms of the complaints by area, broken down by the type of complaints. Here's a kind of model in terms of the number of complaints we've been receiving. That's up to period 6, so it's like for like. It's not like that's 33 for the entirety of 22, 23 and 29 up to where we are now, which is near enough at the year end anyway. And also there's a progression chart in terms of tracking around the number of complaints per 100,000 meals. So again, if that's on an upward trajectory, we know we've got a problem and we can take action around that. The next screen relates to tackling climate change. Again, perhaps a little change we would like to do is there's some of this information needs a bit of narrative to explain. That we've filled a bit of the screen with the narrative. My colleague Gallon, who's done all the heroic work with us, he's going to look to try and reduce that and put that in that like a pop-up box rather than have that on the main screen. But again, in terms of the transport side of our approach, CO2 per mile, we're carried out a lot of campaigns in terms of preventing vehicles idling, unnecessary use of engines, etc. So we're kind of focused on that in terms of rolling CO2 usage, percentage of low and zero carbon vehicles on the fleet, percentage of electric vehicles on the fleet, which positively are both going in an upward direction. And then we're keeping a track on the CO2 by mile. And again, that's one, if it starts going on an upward trend, then we know we've got a problem and we can take action on that. The next slide relates to health and safety, and that's total accidents. RIDOR is reportable to the Health and Safety Executive, and just as a percentage. Again, breakdown in terms of total accidents, RIDOR accidents over a period of years. And then this is very helpful on the left-hand side around the types and nature of accidents. So slips, trips and falls is a big issue for us. We've carried out a couple of campaigns in terms of slips, trips and falls, both within construction facilities. So that's the value of this type of analysis. And the last screen you'll probably be delighted to know is looking at our absence rolling 12-month absence rates. So again, this is all broken down in terms of the absence percentages, average days lost, and then the total absence rate, which is slightly higher than our KPI at the moment. Again, we're actioning that, and then just a breakdown between the different frontline employees and office-based employees. And again, we can see the trend line there. So if we're seeing things again on an upward trajectory, we know we need to take action. So that's in summary where we are with the dashboard. We've as I mentioned, there's a few things we still need to tweak, and I think it's going to be one of these things that probably never actually gets finished, because there's probably always going to be refinements. But certainly from where we had the dashboard and where the contribution from Bill Martin and others through the member officer working group, I think it's added a lot of value to it, and I hope you can hopefully see the sense and value of this. So next steps for us, subject to Joint Committee's approval on Monday, is we feel that a lot of the reports that come to the Joint Committee will no longer be needed, because a lot of the information will be on the actual dashboard itself. We want to produce what we're calling a quarterly performance report, which will pick the highlights of our performance. It will pick the areas where we feel we need to improve, and also any other trends and any things that we need or we think the Joint Committee would need to know about. The value of the dashboard itself is it allows yourselves as Joint Committee members to interrogate any of that and ask us questions on any of that. So, for example, I would like to think it won't happen, but if we maybe ignored or didn't spot something which was perhaps an issue, it gives you that facility to challenge us via the dashboard, because you will have permanent access to that dashboard. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Oh, sorry.
I'm really pleased to see it. I think the only thing that really concerned me was that comment you just made, that we might not have to bring so much to committee, because I'm not sure all of us are going to be studying this in the level of detail that you might think we are, and I'm concerned that something may slip through the net if you as officers aren't studying it and flagging it up.
Yeah. But when I say we wouldn't bring so much, I'm thinking, for example, the workload report, which has got a bit of the things about school meals, a bit of the things about construction, but it does have a lot of narrative, and I just don't know how much value that narrative has. So it's things like that. So it's condensing down to the key performance issues rather than a lot of narrative that sometimes surrounds reports that come to committees.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, and I think it's really good. Massive amounts of data in there, which I'm pleased to see. So it must have taken your staff a lot of time. Grateful to them for doing so.
Thanks very much, Angus. Grant?
Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it will save time and people not going in. You read something and you don't have a context really, because it's a snapshot in time. I think it's really good seeing a trend. I know what Angus is saying, about not bringing it to committee, but I'm sure that if an elected member sees that there's a trend on here that they want it to be aired in front of the whole committee, then they can bring it forward and ask you to. I think the whole committee needs to see this and bring a paper on it, and it can be questioned at committee. But where things are going well and everything, then you can only focus on the things where the Joint Committee really needs to be focused on. I think this is. I'd like to take some of this and bring it back to PKC, and we had the in-depth analysis here at the touch of a button, rather than having to go through hundreds of pages of committee papers to find out something where things are lost. So no, I think it's really good. So I had no input in it at all. So I'd like to thank everybody who has, and I'm really supportive of it. Thank you.
Very grateful for these comments, Grant. Thanks very much. I don't want to detail. Oh, sorry, Bill, you want to come in?
Yeah, I just would want to echo what Grant said. Yeah, I think it's really good. It allows people to drill into things that they're interested in, and if there's an issue, raise it at meetings. The thing that I found quite powerful was the stats on how much officer time was spent preparing reports, and there was detailed number of hours to produce reports, depending on the length of them. And I think this may be able to replace some of the reports, and I think it's good. Like Grant, I would like to see more of this in Angus Council, to be quite honest with you, because we're all swamped with huge long reports, and I think for a lot of reports that data available at a touch of a button is much better actually, and it doesn't tie up as much time. And full credit to people who've put this together, because it's not a 5-minute job, clearly, and I think it's really good. So well done.
Thank you very much. I'm really grateful for these comments, because that is absolutely what the intention of this whole exercise was to make it visible, accessible, simple, get to the key part of the document, saves yourselves as elected member time reading hundreds of pages, saves ourselves as officers preparing reports, which sometimes we know elected members don't have time to read. So thank you very much for these comments.